A pleasant Tuesday, everyone. Welcome into the It's Official podcast. I'm Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet. He's Jeff Siegel. Each and every week, we take on 5 hot topics in horse racing. And Jeff, most of the time, it's on the track. We get to talk about somebody like us this week. It's the National Horse Players Championship was completed this past weekend in Las Vegas. So we're going to give the horse players a shout out this week. And to me, that's near and dear.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't participate in these contests for various reasons. One of which I don't really have time, but and I probably wouldn't do all that well. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. And if you've got 700 and some odd people who are in the contest, odds are stacked against you. But if you win it, yes, as Mike Gillum did, then that's a hit of a lifetime. And I can't imagine going down to the last race and being in front by a dollar or two, and with so much on the line. Yeah. Tension must have been great, but it's exciting to see, and we congratulate the handicapper who was able to pull it off.
You've sweated out some pick sixes over the years where you knew the will pace. So what do you do when there's big money on the line, Jeff Siegel? You're looking at 6-7 figures potentially on a payout. You're in the last leg. Are you like walking around? Are you going to the bathroom? I mean, what are you doing if you're sitting there?
You're pacing. And the conversations when we hit for 700,000 at Santa Anita back in the 80s. We didn't know it was that much because they didn't have the will pace at the time. You just had to wait it out. But we were thinking about that, and the conversation went to where do we want the horse to be? Who you're afraid of? How is the jock going to screw it up? All those things. And then he won at the last race he won, so we knew we hit it. We thought there was a chance we might have the whole pool, which would have been $1.4 million. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. That was like 40 years ago. I can't even remember yesterday. So, I mean, I think it was fun. I think.
Whatever your lucky spot is at the track, you're finding it, right? If somebody's in that spot, you're giving them a little nudge like, sorry, buddy, I got to stand here when that kind of money's on the line. Let's get after our 5 topics this week as Louisiana Derby Week hits us here, and the Triple Crown Trail really picks up pace this coming weekend. Our first topic, we are going to hail the champ. Mike Gillum is his name, from Indianapolis, Indiana, the winner of the 25th National Horse Players Championship in Las Vegas this past weekend. He qualified through the tournament on track at Horseshoe Indianapolis, his home racetrack, and went on to the victory. It wasn't easy. He started day 3 of the tournament in 64th place. He had no cap horses, nothing crazy. He just picked winner after winner after winner after winner, and finally caught that guy on the right. What a tournament played by Seth Morris. He led for almost a day and a half over 700 plus players before being caught in the next to last race. Gillum took the lead in the next to last contest race with a favorite that put him $1.20 ahead, and it gave him a chance to close out the tournament by taking the favorite in the last race at Santa Anita, who delivered the big money for him. How much money? You see the check, $800,000. The final table at the NHC shaked out this way with these 10 players. Mike Gillum got the $800,000 payday. Seth Morris led almost all the way, still $250,000 in his pocket. What a great tournament he played, but a $550,000 loss he'll be thinking about, I'm sure, in that last race at Santa Anita. Top 10 rounded out by Matthew Blanchett, Lawrence Cowden, Daniel Kaplan, Rob Henney, Nicholas Sharilla, TJ Sunday, GT Nixon, and Scott Cavalieri, all the way down to 10th, paying out $65,000 in the final table. Jeff and I are going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts and things that struck us about this year's NHC in just a minute. But you want to hear from the winner, and Rachel McLaughlin from Horseshoe Indianapolis. She was part of the home team, I guess. She was working for the NHC this weekend doing player interviews. She caught up with Mike Gillum just moments after the big finale.
Mike, I'm tickled to death for you. Tell me how you're feeling first and foremost.
Absolutely incredible. It's just like tops. It's like way tops after the kids being born and getting married and all the good stuff. Grandbaby. This is just it's a great day. I know I'll probably never get here or do this again. Well, I'll get here again. I don't know about win it, but it's so hard to win. It's my 3rd year being here. Last year I came and I qualified, came in 34th, so I cashed and I was really happy about that. But to come here and now actually win, it is just absolutely so excited. And I almost screwed it up. I was 5th after day 1, and with 2 races to go, I was in 81st. So I'm like, how can you possibly not qualify after being in 5th? It all just worked out. I barely made it to the second day. I barely made it to the final table on the very last race. And then I barely held, I got to it, first with 2 races to go, and I barely held, barely held on with a favored. So I'm just so excited. I can't believe this is really happening. I keep wanting to pinch myself, and I do, and I'm like, ow, that hurts. So I guess it is true.
It was true indeed, and that's the sound of a guy hitting for $800,000. I'd be screaming too. I'm one of those people who scream, and I'm like, riding along with the jock at the track. I mean, some people don't like the fans who do it that way, and rather you act like you've been there before. I get excited when I'm hitting a winner. So if it's of any significance at all, you'll hear me, but not like Mike that day when he took down $800,000. Just a regular horse player, Jeff, and this is what I like. He picks up the racing form. He's been reading the racing form every day of 20, 30 years, playing the races, passed down from his grandfather to his father, his uncle. He said play in Indianapolis, and grew up playing the races, doesn't use any fancy computer programs or anything like that. And he did this almost like a pick and pray, he said, where he made his selections ahead of time and stuck with them. He wasn't playing the tote. He wasn't playing the game or the system. He just had damn good handicapping.
And that's the thing is I know that I used to think that there's a lot of luck involved in this. And of course there is. We know that. Mm-hmm. But you still have to be able to handicap. And for him to do so well in a previous tournament and then win this one tells me this guy can pick winners, and he can play it the right way. It's not luck. It's luck. Obviously, there's a great component, but you still have to have the skill. And I see a lot of names that are, in the top 20, 30, like every year. I mean, they don't always win, but they get paid and they do a good job. So it's not luck. It's skill. And this, this man, Mike Gillum, he's got skill. We know that.
He's got game, and he's got $800,000 now. If you enjoyed the tournament scene, be sure to play with ExpressBet and FirstBet. ExpressBet Online has the best tournament play that you'll find anywhere. 100% of entry fees go back into the payoffs. ExpressBet keeps no money when they play tournaments online with our program. So be sure to get involved. Go to expressbet.com/tournaments or click on the navigation bar there with the tournaments tag, and that'll get you to the schedule and how you enroll in the tournaments with ExpressBet, because great way to play. A lot of people take a big interest in it. And I know with the NHC, the players who are serious about it, they don't necessarily like to take out of the tournament, that the NTRA takes a lot of operational fees out of it, and not 100% of it's paid back. But again, when you get to the top, that $800,000 payday is something exceptional. And that's why so many people chase it each and every year, because it can be a life-changing score. But again, when you play with ExpressBet and FirstBet Online, tournaments at ExpressBet, there is no takeout in those tournaments. All the money paid back each and every tournament in the form of cash and prizes. So check those out if you want to get involved in the tournament scene. Up next, topic 2 on the big board, we go from Mike Gillum's championship victory to the best sprinter in California. The Calbred, the Chosen Vron, was at it again this past weekend. Yeah, we know he dominates the Calbreds, but he steps into open company on occasion as well and flexes his muscle. He did so in winning the San Carlos.
The Chosen Vron turns for home, well off the rail. Ghost of Midnight takes up the chase on the inside of Elwood Blues. There's an 1/8 of a mile to go, and the Chosen Vron still loaded. Cruising through the stretch, Ghost of Midnight running a big race along the inside as they pass the 16th pole. The Chosen Vron is simply too strong as he wins the San Carlos Stakes.
I'll leave it to you, Jeff. One of the coolest horses in your backyard.
No question. He has now won 16 races from 21 career starts. Although he made most of his money facing Calbreds, he's a grade 1 winner. He won the Ben Crosby last year. This was a San Carlos, a grade 2. There is just nobody around that can touch him locally. Now, if you're going to throw in Elite Power and those kind of horses at him, like you saw in the Breeders' Cup, all right, that's a little tough. But other than that, and I don't know if there is any top quality sprinters of that level this year. I know the Chosen Vron can run at Del Mar. I'm sure that they would like to try him again at the Breeders' Cup and keep him healthy. But one thing I will say, Eric Kruljack has done such a great job because He's never asked the Chosen Ron, other than in the Breeders' Cup, which was in his own backyard. I doubt if he would have traveled for that race. But other than that race, Santa Anita, he's never asked the Chosen Ron to really do more than he's capable of doing. And what he's capable of doing is beating just about everybody. And that's sprinting, routing, dirt, grass. It doesn't matter. I actually think he's just as effective 2 turns. In fact, if you go back and look at his chart, you'd see the last 2-turn race he won by 6.5, going a mile around 2 turns. So he can do just about anything. And the idea here with the gelding is to keep him going for as long as possible and to maintain your form as long as possible. And that's what the Chosen Ron has done. Interesting story about Ghost of Midnight, who ran second and probably ran as well against Chosen Ron as anybody. Here's a horse who didn't run until he was 5 years old. He was maiden 20. He didn't run. He made his debut. And he trained like a stakes horse, like a Derby horse way back as a 3-year-old. Never made it to the post. Finally made it to the races at age 5 and a maiden 20 at Del Mar last year. And this is a horse that, by Ghost Sapper, I mean, he was 8-1 the day that he won his maiden. And I remember him, I'm saying, I don't know if this horse is like broken down or whatever, but he was a good horse at one time. He had slow works, but anyway, he won that race from here to there. And since then, he's risen from a maiden 20 all the way up to a grade 2 sprinter. Ghost of Midnight is just a neat horse, and that's who the Chosen Ron had to beat. These 2 horses are one of my favorites on the grounds because they've overcome adversity and just lay it on the line every time they run.
I love the older sprinters. It's just Americana. It's just blue collar racing, but at a higher level, the highest of the blue collar level when you get these top notch older sprinters like that. And they are the backbone of the game to me. And the horses that you want to come out and see 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year when they race. So just another great performance by the Chosen Ron as he continues his winning streak now and winning 10 of his last 11. To our third topic this week, we're going to go to the Triple Crown Tracker. We don't have any big races to review last week. It was all quiet on the 3-year-old prep front in a rarity. But we had a couple big workouts to talk about, Jeff, and also a big news item. We hinted about this a week ago at this time in the Triple Crown Tracker, where we said, where the heck is Nisos? We've been looking for him for a couple weeks. Where there was smoke, there was fire. He ended up, I think, just a couple hours after our podcast dropped on Tuesday a week ago. They announced that Nisos is going to be out now for the next 30 days with the minor setback, according to the connections. So looks like Santa Anita Derby obviously would be off the table at that point, and the Preakness looks to be in major jeopardy. If he misses 30 days, he won't make the Preakness.
No, I mean, you could just put 2 + 2 together there. I mean, for him to get scratched, not work that weekend, not work the following weekend, and now we're getting into the next weekend, and we speculated that if he doesn't work in a day or 2, there's something amiss. Obviously, there was. I don't know exactly what it is. They didn't really specify as to what the issue was. Right. 30 days means, you know what? Sometimes the 30 days means. It means we don't know what's wrong with them, but we'll check them back in 30 days and see if something serious. That's what it could be. It could be bone bruising. It could be a lot of things. But what I definitely think is it puts not only the Santa Anita Derby, which is obviously not going to happen, but even the Preakness, it puts that race in jeopardy because he's not only is he not trained, but you just don't start breezing him in 30 days. You got to help him and get him fit again and make sure that he's okay. So I'd say that's off the planning as well. So that's too bad. But it just goes to show you how tough it is. And can you imagine owning that horse and being eligible to the Kentucky Derby? And forget about, he wasn't going to run the Derby anyway, so what's the difference? Right. But man, it's tough. I mean, to have a Derby horse, it's the racing gods are cruel sometimes. And
everything to go your way, right? And we talked about this with Locked a couple weeks ago too. That he was in the same boat where things were not going right. He had a temperature, he missed a start, then he missed another start. Just pull the plug at that point, and it ends up Locke had a knee injury, I believe, was reported and would be out for a while as well. So we talked with Nisos at the beginning of the year when the Churchill Downs date shift happened. When they said horses had to leave the barn by the end of January, I think it was. before Triple Crown nominations came out and all that. And we talked about, oh, what a crime it could be to Nysos in public opinion of, look, this could be the Derby winner and he's not even going to be eligible. But we cautioned at the time, look, hey, it's a long way between now and the Derby. He could be Justify or he could be Mastery, right? And a horse like that for Baffert, who wins 1 or 2 starts just absolutely brilliantly, maybe a 3rd start, and then you don't see him again. I mean, it happens, right? We see brilliant horses go by the wayside and never make it to the Triple Crown. Right now, Nysos is looking more Mastery perhaps than Justify, but certainly a horse who was very exciting on the early part of the trail this winter. And now Nysos, of course, looks like he will not be part of the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, we knew that, but now probably not part of the Preakness as well. We'll cross our fingers and see where we might see him again. Now, we did have some big horses working this past week. In fact, 2 of the top horses in the country. Sierra Leone is considered by many the #1 ranked horse off his win in the Risen Star. He's not running back this weekend in the Louisiana Derby. We'll see him next in the Bluegrass at Keeneland in a couple weeks, but he's been training down in Florida, Jeff, and he had himself quite an interesting tag team partner back here on the 16th on Saturday.
That's a colt named Blazing Sevens. You may recall, and he's on the outside here. You may recall Blazing Sevens finishing 2nd in the Preakness last year. So not only is this an older horse, but he is a very, very good old horse on the comeback trail. Have not seen Blazing Sevens since last summer, but he looks like he's training really well. Now, Sierra Leone's on the inside here, Jeremy, and it's not his running style. I would have thought they would have broken him off behind Blazing Saddles, but the fact that he was on the inside and maintained his position, mild coaxing only, that to me was an impressive drill.
I know you're a fan of the movie, but I remember this from last year. You've called Blazing Sevens Blazing Saddles a couple times now on the podcast, Jeff.
That's right. Blazing Saddles.
I mean, it's a great
Blazing
movie.
Saddles to me. I mean, I remember when that movie came out, and that was 1972, and it was so unique. It had so many things in it that had never been on screen before. If you watched it now, you'd probably say, well, that's old hat. But at the time, Blazing Saddles was pretty darn funny. Anyway, I like that work, Jeremy. Didn't you? I mean, inside
I did.
And into the bridle, not being asked, not too fast, not too slow, but what was needed to kick him over for his next start. And I think he is the horse to beat now in the Derby based on all I've seen so far. Things could change, but right now, Sierra Leone is my top pick.
And you have to know your trainers and how they work horses. Chad Brown's going to work them even like that, finish heads up. There's not one defeating the other kind of situation. That's the way Chad works. But I thought it's everything you wanted to see from Sierra Leone. He looks to have come out of that Risen Start and should be formidable for sure in the Bluegrass Stakes. Now, Fierceness was defeated in his first start after winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He came back in the Holy Bull at Gulfstream a month or so ago and just was flat that day. He's been working in company with the horse Tuskin Sky, who was a really hot shot horse from the Gulfstream meet, won a maiden, won an allowance. Looks like a stakes horse that Todd's going to put in one of these final preps to give a shot. They've worked together in company 2 weeks ago.
Tuskin Gold has a neck to make up on Skip the Line.
Back to the Fierceness and Tuskin Sky workout here from Palm Beach Downs on last Friday, the 15th of March. These two have worked in company now 2 weeks in a row, and Tuskin Sky, the gray to the outside, Fierceness to the inside. Tuskin Sky's got to work hard to try to keep up, and he really doesn't. And you see Fierceness going much easier, the two.
You know, Fierceness might be the University of Arizona version of horses. In other words, he can look great when they win, but he can lose to anybody. And I think that's what U of A is going to have to worry about come tournament time. But the problem with Fierceness is not ability. It's not, is he good enough? No, that's not the issue. The issue is, will he bring his best race in a race with a big field in which he doesn't figure to get a pristine type of trip? When you're working inside here and you got nobody in front of you and nobody to the left of you, nobody behind you, you're going to look good because this colt, as he showed in the Breeders' Cup, has a tremendous amount of talent. And if you could tell me what kind of trip he's going to get in his next start and in the Kentucky Derby, I could tell you whether he's going to win or not.
Right. I think Florida Derby next for Fierceness. I think they're going to want him to be up into the race. You know, I think that's kind of working him inside like that. And, instead of breaking off and behind him, they're not trying to, doesn't seem like they're trying to teach him anything, right? I think they're letting him be him. And if that's good enough, it's good enough. And like you said, he doesn't want a lot of negatives. So he's got to get out of the gate. He's got to get into the mix. We'll see what kind of field shows up for the Florida Derby and talk about some of these 3-year-olds and where they may head next. Here on the Triple Crown Tracker, we're going to take a look at my countdown to the Crown Top 20. This week, no major changes if you saw the Friday publication of this, because we already had Nysos out of the mix last Friday. But on Tuesday's podcast, we showed you where Nysos was ranked number 2 last week. Now Nysos is out. The horse I brought up into the rankings is Encino. He was really impressive for Brad Cox and Godolphin in running down the favorite to win the the John Battaglia stakes at Turfway Park. And Encino doesn't run back this weekend in the Jeff Ruby because that race was only 3 weeks in front of the main event at Turfway. So we're going to see Encino again, probably in the Bluegrass or Wood. We added the potential prep races here to the top 20 horses. These are a combination of reported goals and targets from the trainers, also a little bit of speculation. There's some either ors in there. But Jeff, as you take a look at the top 20 here, again, no major changes to the order and the way I think the way I shake things out here. But you see a lot of the top horses will not be matching up with each other in that final prep, and a lot of them are going to try to zig and zag away from each other.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because that'll make the Derby even more challenging. The more head-to-heads you don't have, the more likely you will have of really having to dig down deep and find the best horse that hasn't been determined quite yet. We're still waiting. The 2 that I'm kind of waiting for are Conquest Warrior, who I really think is a good colt. You got a number 11, which is about as high as you could put him, based on the fact that he's never been in a stakes race yet.
Right.
And then Mystic Dan, who was so impressive in an off-track win. I don't know whether it was the mud or not. More times than not, when I see a horse like that, it turns out that it was the mud and that they're not that good, So, but I'm not going to condemn Mystic Dan until such time as he proves that he's just a mud freak and nothing else. So those are the 2 that I'm kind of really interested in that could leapfrog into your top 10 next time out. And the rest of these, I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good feeling as to what they're capable of doing. And then again, Forever Young. Over in Dubai. I mean, we don't know what he's quite up to, and he'll be interested. We'll be interested to see how he runs overseas, because if he wins, he's coming over, and he's good. I know that. He's at least good. He may be better than good, but it'll be interesting to see how he runs there.
There are questions, right? I mean, Fierceness, is he going to bounce back from that race? Is Forever Young as good as we think? He didn't dominate in Saudi Arabia. Is he going to show more in the UAE, as you question? Sierra Leone just does kind of tick the box. I mean, he ran really well in the Revson last year, which has proven to be a key race this spring. He came back with a nice victory. Same with Dornoch. He came back and got the victory, but he wasn't a wow performance. But you kind of think with Dornoch and Sierra Leone, you know what you've got there. Now it's just a matter of like somebody else is better than them, but they seem to be who they are, and they seem trustworthy. Same way I thought the comeback race was good for Timberlake at Oaklawn when he came back in the Rebel Stakes. We'll see him in his final prep, but a lot of these others kind of have some question marks yet to solve and answer. Others, we don't know quite what their ceiling is, but that's what we're going to determine between now and Derby Day. Again, I think we're inside like around 50 days to the Kentucky Derby, something like that around this point. And it seems like a long ways off, but these horses basically have one more start, and then it's the training up to the Kentucky Derby from that point forward. Back to the big board, and we're going to stay with the theme of the Kentucky Derby chase and the road to the Triple Crown, because we've got 2 prep races this week. And we're going to take a chance here to preview a bit. 2 races this week are the Fairgrounds race, the Louisiana Derby, and the Turfway race, the Jeff Ruby. Jeff Siegel, let's start our preview of the Louisiana Derby, taking a look at this field of 12. Morning line favorite is Track Phantom on the outside. He's running in all 4 legs of the Louisiana Derby series. He's the only horse to appear in more than 2 of them, and he draws the 12 hole again. This is custom for Track Phantom. He's been the outside horse in all 4 races except one where he was next to the outside. He's only had 1 horse outside of him in 4 races this season. That might be a good thing, though, for a horse who's got some early speed like he is, being outside of the other speeds.
But can he stop? That's the thing. I mean, sure, if he can cross over and get over and going a mile and 3/16, there should not be any issue in doing that. So I don't think the outside post bothers him at all. Here's what I looked at, though, Jeremy. When I'm trying to evaluate, one of the tools that I use, not the only one by any stretch, but one of the tools I use is trying to figure out whether a 3-year-old is making progress. Is he getting better with every race? Is he advancing? Is he stepping up? Here's Track Phantom's last 4 Beyer numbers, beginning with the maiden win at Churchill Downs, November 25th. He's gone from 88 to 89 to 90, back to 89. So he's had 4 races, and he's just kind of like staying in the same spot.
Right.
Okay. And I don't know how much upside he has. Not only that, but his last 2 races, he got that front running, controlling speed type of race, which you can never count on in any race at this level, and then in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm a little soft on Track Phantom. Now you compare this with a horse like Tuskin Gold, okay? And Tuskin Gold is 8-1. Now, as a gambler, I'm looking not so much what Tuskin Gold has done, but what I think he might be capable of doing in what would be just his 3rd career start. First time out, he earned a modest 65 Beyer number at Aqueduct Sprinting, and then he jumped all ahead in a 2-turn race at Gulfstream to an 84. So he moved up 19 points from between his maiden race, first race, and his maiden win. I think that's what the pattern that I would like to see, especially for Chad Brown, colt by Medaglia d'Oro, out of a mare by Curlin. They're not supposed to be precocious with that kind of pedigree.
Right.
So to me, whatever he's done, and he's already right there with these anyway, I think you're going to see a rather significant jump up from Tuscan Gold. To me, he might be the gamble in that race.
I agree. I think he had a really troubled trip in that race in his career debut that he wasn't supposed to win. Sierra Leone won that race. He was the other Chad Brown in there. Change of Command was in there, a really good show horse. One of the better maiden races in New York last year, and he had a ton of trouble in it. So much so that debut 4th place finish, I ranked him on my top 20 in the preseason to start the year as a Derby contender off a 4th place maiden race. He hadn't broken his maiden yet. I think he's the goods, and I thought his race and his comeback at Gulfstream was really good.
Tuskin Gold has a neck to make up on Skip the Line, and here he comes now. Gaffleone and Tuskin Gold issue the challenge through 3 quarters in 1:13-1. It's Tuskin Gold who's powered forward to take the lead. Skip the Line is flat to the boards, but back to second, 7 ahead of the rest, led by Big Rich and Princetown. Final 16th to go. They go to the first wire, and Tuskin Gold's going to get there first. It's Tuskin Gold clearing off for trainer Chad Brown to win by 5.
So who did he beat? The horse who ran second in that race was a brother to Arrogate for Todd Pletcher, who was supposed to be the goods, and he put him away by 5 lengths. So I'm thinking Tuscan Gold might be the horse to beat in the Louisiana Derby. Jeff and I will have all of our final handicapping on the Friday podcast, First Call, so be sure to check back for that. Also this weekend in the Triple Crown Trail, we've got the Jeff Ruby coming up on Saturday at Turfway Park. 1 1/8 miles on the Tapeta surface, a field of 12 with a couple also eligibles to the outside. Agate Road is cross-entered in both races, the Louisiana Derby and this race at Turfway, the Jeff Ruby. He's been really good on turf. He's a horse who maybe would fit better, I think, in the Jeff Ruby than he would in the Louisiana Derby. We'll see where Todd Pletcher turns with him. He's the 4-1 second choice in the Jeff Ruby. But Jeff, the favorite, is Endlessly, who's won all over California, from Del Mar to Santa Anita to Golden Gate Fields. He is the top horse on turf in Southern California and on synthetic in Northern California. What do you make of Endlessly coming into the Jeff Ruby?
I like him a lot. I think he's a really nice colt. He was running on grass last year as a 2-year-old, which made sense, being by Oscar Performance. And he's never been on dirt, and he won't have to worry about dirt until maybe the Kentucky Derby, because this race obviously on the all-weather. I thought his win in the El Camino Real Derby at Golden Gate was very good. I like the way he finished. He came home strongly. And the 2 colts that he beat, Tapalo and a guy named Joe, they're better than average. I can tell you that. In fact, the guy named Joe ran well in a turf stakes at Santa Anita just last weekend. And I mean, he went by them and did it the right way. And I think Michael McCarthy is a terrific trainer, and Rispoli knows him. He's going to go back and ride him. And he's already proven he can go 1 mile and 8. So I like Endlessly. I really think under these conditions, all weather at this distance, improving pattern, career top number in his last start, I think Endlessly is going to win this race.
And with Epic Ride and also Encino, the 1-2 finishers in the Battaglia Memorial, the top 2 horses on the grounds at Turfway, not coming back. This is a race where they're all trying to get used to the footing. Only 1 horse in the Jeff Ruby field has ever raced at Turfway. So they're all new shooters trying to figure out the footing. And Tapeta was no problem in Northern California for Endlessly last time.
has a lead by about 3 lengths. Endlessly, the chalk comes on the outside, and Endlessly has a 16th of a mile to make up 2 lengths. And it's Tupalo with the lead close to home, but it's Endlessly, the favorite sweeps on by for the win. Tupalo second, guy named Joe third, Old Triangle fourth.
And for our final picks on this race and many others for the weekend, our stakes, be sure to check out the Friday podcast. Again, First Call, it usually drops in the early afternoon hours. Jeff and I will handicap not only the Jeff Ruby, but we'll look at the Louisiana Derby as well. And that Bluegrass Bayou Pick 5. We're going to look at all 5 races in that Pick 5 sequence. Okay, Jeff, we're going to finish up with our Stars of Tomorrow segment. This is what we do here on the show on It's Official. We've been doing about 1.5 years where we give you one for the road, something optimistic to look forward to. And our Stars of Tomorrow this week goes back to Oak Lawn Park, where this is USCAR made an impressive debut. We're going to listen to Matt Ditterman's call, and you could tell us all about this new rising star.
Top of the lane, this is USCAR off the turn, has the lead here. Capital Connection second, Burlsworth third, Duke of Duval is next as they hit the furlong pole. This is USCAR is still ahead, and he's opening up now, and the son of Oscar Performance putting on a show today. In the first career race, he's made a very good impression. This is USCAR, draws off, 1 by 5.
Big win there at Oaklawn. What do you make of this one?
Well, on the Oscar Performance theme that will continue here, first-time starter sprinting over a wet track. I mean, you wouldn't expect to see this colt's best stuff sprinting over a wet track. He was 9-1. I probably didn't do a whole lot with him in the morning, just kind of literally getting his feet wet in this race. And yet he showed very good speed, head-and-head, drew off. His best work was done in the final 16th of a mile, last 8th and 12-1, not knocked about, galloped out well. And to me, when you get an Oscar Performance 3-year-old colt winning first time out sprinting and doing it stylishly, you have to think that the best is yet to come. Mm-hmm. He's out of a mare by Good Journey, who was a California stallion, and the mare herself, multiple stakes placed. She was a full sister to Bella Viaggio, who was a terrific Calbred mare. The family is there, third Dam Stakes winning daughter of Prize. So there's nothing but stamina on the bottom side of the pedigree and quality. And so for this colt to win first time out, in that way, I don't know how ambitious they're going to get, but whatever it is, he certainly looks like if I owned him, I'd really be excited about him. But I'd also want to take it easy just a little bit. Let's not get crazy. That's just go through the conditions, and then eventually the chance will be there to do whatever you want with them. Whether keep them on dirt, run them on grass, run them long, whatever it is, you can do it. This is USCAR is the name of the horse, and I would definitely keep your eyes out when this colt comes back down the road.
Our 5 topics on the board this week are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. We said, hail to the champ, Mike Gillum. Congratulations on the $800,000 victory in the National Horse Players Championship. The Chosen Vron, he just does it. He's on the clock, and he's in the winner's circle. 10 of his last 11 now after winning the San Carlos. Our Triple Crown tracker looked at some workouts from Fierceness and also Sierra Leone. We talked about the defection of Nisos from the trail, and he's out 30 days now. We previewed the preps at Fairgrounds and Turfway Park for the Louisiana Derby and the Jeff Ruby. And then we took a look at our Star of Tomorrow, that being This is USCAR, winning at Oak Lawn Park over the past week. Okay, Jeff, it's March Madness as we get set here on Tuesday morning for our podcast. We got play-in games coming on. We've got brackets. We got brackets to be busted at this point, but we can be perfect right now because nothing is crossed off on our sheet at this point. So I know it was not the college basketball season. Neither you nor I wanted. Your Bruins, my Sooners, both left out of the tournament. And we're going to be looking at this strictly from a handicapper standpoint, I guess, when we look at March Madness this year. Who do you like in the big dance?
Well, this is when I tell you that I absolutely have no clue, even though I watch as much basketball as anybody, because so many games are inexplainable in terms of the results. I know I mentioned earlier, I know Arizona on their very best day, they're the fierceness of college basketball. They can look great. They can blow anybody out at any time, but they can also lose to anybody, as they did last year up at Sacramento when I was there to see the Bruins, and Arizona was there as well. They lost to, what was it, Princeton, I think? But anyway, the bottom line is these kinds of things will happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there was just a crazy team. It's easy to pick UConn and figure that they've been there, they know how to win. So if I gun to my head, I would pick UConn, Chalk City, right? But Arizona to me is capable and on their best day. I don't know whether they can play 6 good games in a row, but I've seen them play in person. I've seen them play on TV, and when they're hot, they are really good. So we'll see what happens with them. I'm not a big Arizona fan, but I think they have a chance at a price. Let's put it that way.
I'm not a Big 12 homer. I typically root against the Big 12 teams because you're recruiting against them, as Oklahoma. I don't want to see them have success, but we're leaving the Big 12 now and going to the SEC. So the Big 12 teams can go on and win now, and I won't have a hang up over it. But I do think Iowa State's got a big chance, but they're in the same bracket with Connecticut. So that Elite Eight potential matchup between the 1 and 2 seeds in the East with Connecticut and Iowa State, that could be the national championship precursor. The winner of that game might be on the fast track to winning the title. I really like Iowa State out of the Big 12 to make a lot of noise in the dance. They've had a phenomenal season, and they play the game the right way. They can score and they defend like crazy. So really a good team there. That's our thoughts on college basketball. They're not nearly as in depth probably as some of you out there. So we hope that you have fun with your brackets, even if you're just one who fills it out in an office pool and has a little fun online. Enjoy the games, enjoy the horse racing. We've got a big prep weekend. We talked about the 2 big preps in Louisiana and also at Turfway. There's also 2 other 3-year-old races to keep your eye on. At Oaklawn, they're running the Hot Spring Stakes, which is a mile. Nash is in that one, a horse who's dropped out of some major stakes. That could get you back maybe towards a Lexington move, Preakness move. So that Oaklawn Hot Spring Stakes on Saturday could have some Preakness horses in it. Keep an eye on that. And also the Preakness Path, they've got the 2-turn private term stakes for $100,000 running at Laurel on Saturday. Those races tend to produce horses towards the Federico Tessio, and then they would springboard into potentially the Preakness. So could have a couple Preakness starters off the main path with those 2 major preps, but we're going to focus obviously on Louisiana and Kentucky this weekend with those 2 big 3-year-old preps. Jeff, final word as we send them out here on a big week of racing coming up.
Didn't have a whole lot to talk about from last week, but I think that changes now. We've got the preps, the really important prep races are going to start to surface every week from here on in. So we will see what happens there. And it's interesting. I realized that the Kentucky Derby is different without any Bob Bafferts to consider. You always had to figure that maybe he's got the best ones. There are no Bafferts, which means it's wide open,
That's it.
And it's refreshing to a certain extent. But anyway, the Derby winner literally this year could come from anywhere. So we'll be watching. Hopefully we'll have some insight from here on in.
And a special thanks to the NTRA for some of the content that we were able to use on the podcast today from the National Horse Players Championship. Congrats one more time to Mike Gillum on the big $800,000 score. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. We'll be back on Friday with the First Call podcast when we preview 8 weekend stakes races. Until then, have a great week, everybody.